Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 12th edition of our webinar series. Today, we have a talk by a distinguished guest, Dr. Tom Gloss, Editor-in-Chief, ELT Forum. In his talk, he will focus on honing our writing skills such that publishing our articles in international journals is facilitated. This talk is sponsored by the Regional English Language Office of the USA in New Delhi. Dr. Maria is the moderator for this talk, and she will introduce the speaker to you. But before calling her in, I request our team to play a short video which introduces ELTAI, the oldest and the largest association of English language teachers in the country. This video will give you a comprehensive picture of our activities and the benefits you can derive from becoming a member of the association. Watch the video carefully, make your notes. Over to the team. Thank you for that video. It's my pleasant duty to introduce to you Dr. Maria. Dr. Maria has been with the Department of State as Regional English Language Officer since 2004. Maria is currently assigned to the US Embassy in New Delhi. This office supports English language learning, teaching, and training in India, Afghanistan, and Bhutan. She previously served as the RELO, Regional English Language Officer, in Pakistan, South Africa, Brazil, Turkey, and Washington, D.C. Over to you, Dr. Maria.
Classroom management, curriculum development, pragmatics, English for specific purposes, assessment, professional development, young learners, teacher training, music, drama techniques, online instruction, new twists on familiar ideas, and you can see the ... at the end, which means there are other topics that we also publish. I think you can get an idea from this list that we are interested in content that covers almost anything that a teacher can do in the classroom or that a teacher can do in his or her career. But again, not research, but things that teachers can actually do, practices. I went over the couple of sections there, the articles and the teaching techniques. I want to give 3 quick examples of articles to give you an idea of the types of topics that have recently been published. First one, radio drama for speaking practice. This is an example of a project, a class project that can be carried out over several weeks. And the article explains how to introduce the project to the class, steps that have to be taken along the way, how the radio dramas can actually be performed and produced. So you can see this is a kind of article where the author has to go into quite a bit of detail to provide sufficient guidance.
We'll have to check with her.
The second article there, called The Movable Class, How to Class Manage for More Active and Helpful Lessons. Here you can see, you could consider that as a classroom management focused article, or even an approach to teaching. The article gives numerous examples of how teachers can incorporate movement into their class, into day-to-day activities, homework, preparing for exams. Again, this is an article where the author has to go into quite a bit of detail and give numerous examples, and that's why this falls into the category of an article rather than teaching technique. The third example I'm giving you there, how to write an ELT conference abstract. First, I want to say that I hope that we will be able to soon continue to have in-person conferences. I hope conditions allow that soon. But again, this is an article that goes into quite a bit of detail, showing readers the various kinds of moves that take place within conference abstracts, with example after example, so that readers get a very clear idea of how they can construct an effective conference abstract. So those are just 3 examples, but I point them out because they show very clearly the scope and the depth that the articles in Forum go to. I want to contrast that with a couple of recent teaching techniques articles. First one, Extended Icebreaker, and second one I picked out here, Mingle Bingo. If you're familiar with icebreakers, icebreakers are great. I think they're necessary, and it's always fun to get a new kind of icebreaker that you can use with students. But again, an icebreaker doesn't require the same kind of depth and detail that some of the previous articles I mentioned do. Similarly, Mingle Bingo, I'm a big fan of using mingles in the classroom to share information, to get to know one another. There's a lot of uses for it. But again, a mingle description usually doesn't require nearly the same kind of depth and breadth that the previous articles I mentioned. And you can see there at the bottom, I say teaching techniques give readers ideas that they can add to their teaching toolkit. So it's not going to change the way you teach, but it gives you something extra that you can use in your classroom with your students. That's the idea behind the teaching techniques section. The third section I want to cover right now is called Try This, I say present a teaching idea in step-by-step form with options for variations and extensions. The key here is the step-by-step nature of the article. And in fact, Try This articles may not conform to the typical idea of what an article is, having an introduction, a body, conclusion, and so forth, because the core of the article will be a step-by-step, step one, do this, step two, do this, and so forth, description of the article or of the activity. Recent Try This topics include the mystery bag, listening and speaking skills for young learners, and a community map puzzle. Again, Try This articles give step-by-step instructions. And then usually we like to add variations to the activity because everybody's teaching situation is different. And then extensions in case teachers want to follow up in certain ways after the main activity is concluded. So there are a few examples of the types of articles that Forum publishes and some of the recent articles that we published in each of those categories. Now I'd like to give a few forum specific tips. If you're thinking about submitting an article to English Teaching Forum, here are some things that you might want to keep in mind. First, as I've said before, focus on the practical rather than on research. Many times, one of the main reasons that we are not able to accept articles is because the article focuses more on a research project that the author did than on a practical teaching idea. Present a new, hopefully innovative teaching idea. The idea should be something probably that you have come up with to solve a challenge that you had, and an idea that you feel other teachers in other countries, other contexts could also use. If you're writing about a teaching idea that is already familiar to a lot of teachers that you've seen at workshops, at conferences, that probably would not be the best fit for Forum because we're looking for ideas that are new. Next, make sure the article is relevant to a global audience. English Teaching Forum is read around the world, so the article cannot focus on one country or on one first language. That's a very important, very important point. A few more tips. Guide other teachers rather than report. Explain, here's what you can do. Here's what you as a teacher can do instead of here's what I did. You can use your own experience as an example, but the focus of the article should be on giving guidance and teaching advice to other teachers rather than telling them, oh, I did this, I had a great project with my students, we did this, we did that. Instead, turn it around and say, here's what you can do. And maybe this is optional, but just in light of the current situation around the world, it would be nice to add an online teaching option if that's possible. Again, we will consider articles that look mainly at in-classroom teaching, but just because so many teachers are suddenly teaching online, if you have an idea that you have used in the classroom, but that can be adapted to an online situation, online teaching situation, feel free to add that option to the article. Let's pause here for another quick poll. How close are you to being ready to submit an article to Forum? A, I don't have an idea for an article. B, I have an idea, I haven't started writing yet. C, I've written notes for an article. D, I've got an article ready to submit. So I'll let you think about that for a moment. I will just say, if you're saying D, then great. We look forward to seeing your article soon. If you're saying C, that you've written notes for an article, great. I hope this webinar motivates you to continue and write the article. Same with B, if you have an idea but you haven't started writing yet, now is as good a time as any. And A, if you say that you don't have an idea for an article, this is a good time to sit back and think about some of the challenges you faced, how you've handled those challenges, and whether you feel like your idea might be worth sharing with other teachers, because the challenges you face might be very similar to challenges that teachers in other schools, other countries also face. Oh, I forgot there's a choice E. I'm writing an article while viewing this webinar. I don't know if anybody wants to answer that. If you are, great. I wish you luck. I hope you still pay attention to the webinar, but good luck also with your writing. I want to turn to a slightly different topic and talk a little bit about the submission and review process to let you know what happens when we receive a submission. And this process is very similar to the review process at most journals. Step one, obviously, the author submits a manuscript, and I gave you the email for forum previously, and I'll give it again later. Usually what happens in step two is the editor or the staff of the journal read the submission, and this is called a desk review. And right away we will make a decision, and the decision will be either to send the submission out to reviewers for a full review, or we say they're reject. I don't like that word so much, but we can see that the submission will not be a fit for our journal forum. And again, as I mentioned before, a lot of times this happens because we see that the article is basically a research report. And if we get an article that's a research report, we know that for forum, it's not going to be a fit. And so usually we won't send them out for a full review. We will just do what is called the desk review, and the editor and staff can see that it won't be a fit for forum, and we will let the author know that as soon as possible so that the author can go ahead and send it to another journal. Continuing, if we feel that the article could be a fit and it has potential, we will send the submission out for review. At forum, we have at least 2 reviewers for every submission. We like to have 3 when that's possible. It's not always possible. We have at least 2 opinions coming in. And the review panel members will independently review the manuscript and come to a decision. They will say, accept, meaning, yes, it's fine for publication, ready. They will say, again, reject, which means, no, it doesn't really have potential, and we don't think it's a fit for forum. Or more commonly, what they will say is, please revise and resubmit. And I would say that most reviewers, not only for forum, but for other journals, are very good at giving specific recommendations for resubmission. And my advice here is, if you get the response that says revise and resubmit, I say that is good news, because the reviewers, the journal is opening the door for you and saying, your idea, your article has potential, but we feel you need to edit in some way, revise in some way to make it a better fit for our journal and for our readers. So take this as good news, and also take the recommendations of the reviewers seriously. They know the journal, they know the readers. And if they're asking you to, for example, expand a certain section and go into more detail, then you ought to do that. There might be times when you feel that for some reason, you're unable to follow the recommendation. If that's the case, you should revise as well as you can, but when you return the revised manuscript, you should let the editors and reviewers know why you're unable to follow one of their recommendations for some reason. Make that clear. Don't make it seem like you're ignoring the recommendation of the panel. The process continues. Step 4, the editor, in that case, usually it's me, will notify the author of the panel's decision. And what I usually do is provide feedback and recommendations by synthesizing the feedback and the comments from the reviewers. Some journals will just send the actual feedback from each reviewer. At Forum, we like to synthesize just because we notice that sometimes there's might be a point or two that might be contradictory or maybe unclear. And so we try to make that as clear as possible before we respond to authors with the panel's feedback. If you get the response that asks you to revise and resubmit the manuscript, then you can, and I say you should revise, and then the process repeats. You'll submit the revision, and then we'll go through the process again of having the reviewers read the revision. At Forum, we try to have the same reviewers read the revision who read the original. It's not always possible. We try to do that as much as we can. Let's say that you do that and the reviewers are pleased with the revisions you've made. Okay, reviewers accept the article, so you can celebrate. Next, what will happen is the article will be copy edited. Sometimes that's just minor points. Sometimes there's a little bit more involved, but we like to make sure that it fits the style, and different journals have slightly different styles. You can usually find out about that in the submission guidelines, which I'll mention soon. After we copy edit the article, we will send a proof of the article to the author, and then you will have a chance to go through and make sure that you agree with any edits that have been made, and just to make sure that maybe there's something that needs to be updated in some way. That will be your chance to do that. After you review the proof, you return it, and finally the article is published and you can celebrate again. So everybody is happy. A couple of things I want to say. I know that sometimes authors who are ready to write an article are a little bit intimidated by the process, and I understand that. I know I went through that, and I've had articles rejected in the past, and I know what that's like. It's not a good feeling, but I do want you to know that for myself and every editor that I've spoken with, worked with, we are always happy, overjoyed to receive articles that we feel are strong and that we can publish. It sometimes can make our day to receive a submission that we really feel strongly about and happy about. It's a win for us because a good article makes our journal stronger. And of course, it's a win for you because you get your article published. So I know the process can be somewhat intimidating, but I do want to encourage you to, don't let that stop you. If you feel like you have an idea worth sharing, then please, I encourage you to give it a try. One more thing before I move along, people might want to know how long this process takes. It can vary. The initial review usually takes between 2 and 3 months. Again, it can really depend. And then the revision process, it really depends on the author, the types of revision that we're asking for. But again, that can sometimes take a month or two to do the revisions, and then another month or two for the review of the revision. I would say on average, for a published article, usually the time period is, I would say on average around, or I would say between 8 months to 12 months. Sometimes it can be a little bit quicker than that, sometimes a little bit slower than that, but that is about the average length of time that you should expect to wait. Let's move on to what I call some frequently asked questions. Again, I think there will be time for you to ask a few questions of your own at the end. One question that we get often, is it okay for me to submit my article to more than one journal at a time? So what do you think the answer to that question might be? You have an article, is it okay for you to send it out to as many journals as you can think of right from the start at the same time? My answer to that, you can see, is a big red no. This is something that you don't want to do. And one reason, I've just explained that when you submit an article, usually more than one person, maybe 3 or 4 people, are going to read your article during review. We spend a lot of time reading the articles carefully. We spend a lot of time providing what we hope is helpful feedback. And if we go through all that time and effort, and then we write back to you and say, oh, please revise, something like that. And you say, oh, well, I submitted my article to another journal and they accepted it, so thank you. Well, that's great for you, but that's not going to make us very happy, because we've already spent a lot of time on your article. We do try to keep things moving as quickly as possible so that you don't have to wait very long for a response from us. But it's really accepted practice to submit your article to only one journal at a time. Related to that, may I submit more than one article at a time? For example, you have 2 or 3 articles that you want to submit to forum. Can you submit them together like in a bunch or in a package? Our policy is we ask that you submit only one article at a time. After the first article has been reviewed, you may submit another one. That's fine. You can keep submitting articles one after another after the review process for each one is finished, but only one article at a time. And just one reason for that is, first, we have quite a few articles that we're reviewing at any given time. Another reason is that we can see sometimes that if you submit 2 articles, the first one we read and we say, oh, well, that's not a good fit for forum for this reason. And then we see the second article and we say, oh, well, that's not a fit for forum for the same reason. Whereas if you would submit only one article, we could let you know, we could give you some feedback about the first one, and then you could possibly adapt the second one and have a better chance of getting that published if you would wait for feedback on the first one. So that would be part of your development as a writer. A common question that is asked these days: should I pay to have my article published? My feeling is that you should not. There are quite a few, I don't want to say quite a few, but there are journals that will tell you, oh, if you pay us X amount of money, we will publish your article. I can understand that if you really, really, really want to have your article, your work published, that is tempting. But you need to keep in mind the standards of the journal, and you need to also keep in mind that if you pay to have your article published in a journal, there's a chance, or even a good chance, that when it comes time to maybe apply for a new job or a promotion, it's possible that that journal won't be either accredited or accepted in terms of the professional advancement that you're looking for. So my recommendation is not to do that. I know that there are certain situations where people feel like they might have to, or it's in their best interest, but my recommendation is not to pay to have an article published. Next question: should I follow a journal's submission guidelines? I think most people would know the answer to that, and the answer is yes. On almost every journal's website, you can find submission guidelines telling you the kinds of topics that they are interested in, the accepted length of articles, the style that they follow, different things they might be interested in. In some cases, special interest or focused issues that they have coming up. The submission guidelines can be a real help and can really help you focus your article and increase your chances of publication. And that makes me think of another tip, which is it's probably a good idea to change your article, customize your article depending on which journal you're sending it to. If you submit your article to one journal and it's not accepted, when you're ready to send your article into another journal, check that journal's submission guidelines and see if you can adapt your article a little bit so that you can customize it and, again, increase your chances of publication. You don't have to take the same article and submit it to every journal that you wind up submitting it to. Keep in mind that each time you submit an article to a journal, it's a new opportunity for you. So you want to make the most of that opportunity so you can read the journal's submission guidelines and then adapt your article according to those guidelines. And there is the URL for the forum submission guidelines. Again, if you go to the .gov, you can go to the forum drop-down menu, and then you can find the submission guidelines there. Another question, will forum consider publishing articles based on action research? The answer is yes, but the article has to show how or why the teaching practice is relevant in other contexts. There are some limitations to action research, and one of the limitations is that action research is usually carried out in a very specific context. But if you remember, Forum is not a research-based journal, so we're a little bit less interested in the research results than we are in the teaching idea that generates those results. So it is very possible that some action research could support the idea of your teaching idea being beneficial or effective. But again, the decision about whether to publish your article would be based on the quality of the actual teaching idea, not on the research results. For Forum, what are some reasons an article would not be accepted? Well, this is true of almost any journal. It doesn't fit the journal's needs or doesn't fit the journal's audience. In our case, in Forum's case, often it's because there's not enough practical content. I've gone over that before. The teaching idea, the teaching practice has to be at the core, has to be the focus of the article. Another reason, the ideas are familiar already. The activity you're describing might be something that has been passed around among teachers already. If it's a research journal, it could be because the research that you're doing doesn't advance understanding of the topic that you are looking into. Maybe your research, it maybe not exactly the same as someone else's research, but kind of duplicates what someone else has done and doesn't provide sufficient insight to justify publication. Another reason that an article might not be accepted is that the ideas are abstract or vague, with few or no examples given. I think especially for Forum, because we're a practice-based journal, we like to see examples what the teacher is doing. If it's a vocabulary based game or activity, then give examples of specific vocabulary items and show how they can be used in that game. Specific examples are a definite plus, at least in terms of forum. And I think for any journal, if the references are outdated, that could be a reason why the journal would not accept the article. And I don't want to say, oh, it has to be within the last 5 years or 8 years. It kind of depends on the topic. But you want to show that you are familiar and you are citing the recent voices, recent work on the subject or the topic that you are writing about. You want to show that you are up to date on the discussion and the conversation relevant to your topic. What topics are likely to be published? I'm kind of being general here. The topic is relevant to the field and to the readership. Ideas are new, fresh, clearly explained. The article performed. The article guides readers. Previously in the webinar, I had a slide that listed a dozen or 15 different types of topics. And again, for forum, almost anything that the teacher is doing in the classroom or in his or her career could be something that would fit in forum. And I want to repeat what I said earlier. Forum will continue to consider articles in the practice of in-person, in-classroom teaching, as well as the practice of virtual or remote teaching. Again, just recognizing that the current situation is of real importance to teachers around the world, but also hoping that things can return to quote-unquote normal very soon. Should I include photos with my submission? Occasionally we get a text, an article that includes photos maybe from a classroom activity or a classroom project. I would say with the original submission, it's best not to. It might be that if we accept the article, we would ask, do you have any photos of, for example, students' work, if you can get permission from the students to use their work. But that's one of the considerations. We have to be very careful about permission of sharing work. We have to be careful of anybody's face or image who would appear in forum. It's best to let your article speak for itself. And in general, and we never send photos out with in the review process anyway. So my advice is don't send photos. If you're asked for them later, then that's something you can negotiate with the editors. What advice do you have for actually writing the article? The best advice that I can give is read the journal that you intend to submit to. I don't think there's any better way to prepare yourself to submit an article to a particular journal than to read that journal. Become familiar with the types of articles they publish, become familiar with the writing styles that they usually feature in their article, become familiar with the kinds of articles they've already published. There's just so much you can learn by reading, I would say 2 or 3 issues of a journal. That can be a huge help when you are prepared. Submitting an article to a journal that I had never that you should. So I'm coming here. That's pretty much the end of what I've prepared. So what I'd like to do here, I'll give you the contact information, the website again, and I'll let you either take a screenshot or whatever you want to do with that information. There you can see the website for Forum, the email where you can submit articles, and then the address for the submission guidelines. So you can take a look at that for a moment. And then I think what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is probably open up if we have any questions. I haven't been able. There might have been some that came through on the chat box, but I was not able to follow that very closely here while I was speaking. So do we have a few questions? First, is your journal enlisted in Scopus? It's not in Scopus yet. We're working on that. It's in ERIC, and it is in EBSCO. ERIC and EBSCO. We have worked and we've looked into Scopus. It is not there yet, but thank you for that question. And next, what is the most authentic source to get support while writing literature review on a topic I wish to write on? I can't tell you there's one authentic source, but it depends on the topic, because right now there are so many specialized journals in our field that you really have a wide range of choices. And you know, there are so many journals that are peer reviewed. I think one of the first things you want to do is make sure the journal you're looking at is peer reviewed. Just one piece of advice, as you're starting your research, make sure that you're studying the reference list at the end of each article that you're reading, because very, very often the reference list at the end of an article can just give you so many different directions that you can turn to for more information about your topic. And I don't know if that's the specific kind of answer that you want, but I just feel like reference lists at the end of articles can just lead you into so many productive directions that I would just start there and see where those references take you. We have a question: is it necessary to submit both soft copy and hard copy to the forum? We almost no, we don't get we never get paper submissions anymore. We almost everything is online now. And I guess I should say it's better to submit in a Word type document than a PDF. Word documents are easier to manipulate and easier for reviewers to work with than PDFs. What could be the topics for article writing? Well, I think I've covered that in the webinar already. Again, for forum, almost anything that a teacher does or can do in the classroom with students or in their career could be an acceptable topic for forum. Is it necessary to add literature review to submissions for teaching techniques or try this? That's a very good question. Actually, no, it's not. For full-length articles, yes, literature review is necessary. But for a teaching technique, a short article, try this, a step-by-step article, we do not require literature review. Is there any specific format in writing article for submission to submission in forum? Probably we prefer, what's the name of the font? Times Roman, 12 point. We prefer double space. But if your submission is, 1.5 instead of double space, something like that, we're not going to reject it for that reason. We do like it to be professionally prepared. We don't like to see things that are careless or sloppy. So as long as it's professionally prepared and easy to read and go through, usually we can work with it. How can we submit an article through online? So I gave you the email address earlier. It's etforum@state.gov, gov, G-O-V, etforum@state.gov. That was on a couple of the slides earlier in the webinar. And next question, is it necessary to publish papers in Scopus essays? I think that depends on your institution. Different institutions have different requirements, and that's something that you would have to look at and look into for your particular situation. It's not necessary for everybody in every situation, but in some situations it is. So I'm sorry, I can't give a blanket answer to that. Let's see, how to curb one's own perspective while reviewing any text. So I think this is asking about from a reviewer's point of view, which is kind of interesting. So how to curb one's own perspective. It's kind of interesting because I don't think you can completely eliminate your own perspective and your own experience, and that's one reason that we always send submissions out to more than one person so that we can be sure we're getting at least a couple of viewpoints. But I think as reviewers become experienced, they become better and better at kind of stepping back and considering how beneficial the article would be to readers of that journal. They might not agree with everything in the article, but they can see that the ideas in the article are presented well and supported well. And so an experienced reviewer a lot of times might point out a few places where more support is needed, but we'll be able to step back and say, well, I don't agree with everything here, but the author makes a really good case and it would be beneficial for readers. So basically being professional about the approach. What should be the word limit of an article? For forum, if it's a full-length article with literature review, we ask to have a maximum of 6,000 words, although it's okay to submit a shorter article. For the teaching techniques, there we ask to keep the articles under 2,000 words. And that's the same for Try This, I should say. I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but Try This, the step-by-step articles, also about 2,000 words maximum. Where do we get the latest articles for references beyond forum? Again, that is where you can look at reference lists at articles that are of interest to you, and start looking at those articles and the journals that those articles appear in. And again, that can take you in all kinds of different productive directions. And I'm not sure if the Teachers Association has some reference lists that could be of use there, but that TESOL on their website does have a pretty comprehensive list of journals in the field. So you might want to try the TESOL website and look for their list of journals, because they have more than you need probably, but that would be another place where you could look. And the last question listed here, can you please give some pointers on how we should go about editing our paper? Usually when we submit, at times even after following the formatting guidance, we are told to revise paper. Well, I think it depends there whether you're asking about editing for grammar and usage and that kind of thing. That is one kind of editing. If you're not confident in your grammar, I think it's a good idea to have at least one other knowledgeable person read your paper in any case before you submit it. Somebody that you can trust to give you some honest feedback. And so that could be about grammar, or it could be about the content, about the presentation. But I don't think that it's a good idea to submit a paper without having at least one other person that you know and trust read it. So that's one way. In terms of the overall content, you know, when you submit to a journal, the editors and the reviewers for that journal know that journal and know their readers better than you do. You might be quite familiar with the journal, but they have really intimate knowledge of the general readership. And so if they ask you to revise, it doesn't mean that your paper is weak or that it's problematic. It simply means that there are some things that you can do to make it a better fit for their journal and their readers. And that's something that even very, very experienced scholars go through. Even very experienced scholars are asked to revise. And experienced scholars also have their articles rejected from time to time. So it's, you know, it's just part of the process. You know, again, my advice, have someone else read the paper. And if you are asked for revision, don't take that as a negative thing. Look at it as an opportunity and also a learning opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Glass, for a very, very wonderful session. It was an excellent learning experience for all of us. I'm sure all the participants and my colleagues agree with me. We know why Forum is probably the best journal now, with a person like you monitoring it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you have also, yes, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it, and I hope it was helpful for everyone. And the last thing I just want to say for all the participants, you know, I wish you success in your teaching and your writing, and please stay safe.
Thank you so much. And you also responded to all the questions, and that's wonderful. Now, may I call Dr. Maria to share a few of her thoughts with us. Dr. Maria.
She's not in the room, sir.
Hi.
She is there. Okay, I'm sorry, sir.
Hi, everyone. Oh, so sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning. Technology is fabulous until it's not. But I think overall, you weren't here for me. You were here for the editor-in-chief, Tom Glass, of English Teaching Forum. So I'm glad he got started right away. I would just like to say it was really a thrill to see how many people were joining today, both on Zoom and on YouTube. The interest was pretty high, and I would say just knowing that there are 52 chapters of ELTAI with over 5,000 members. Watch out, Tom. You're going to have a lot of articles coming your way.
Okay. We'll get prepared.
Yeah, so really great session. I'm glad I could stay for all of it and see, you know, I work with Forum every day myself, you know, as a part of what I do as a regional English language officer in India. But it's good to get a refresher from my colleague, Dr. Tom Glass. So I'm glad I could see this session. So yeah, I mean, I just thank you, ELTAI, for organizing this during these unprecedented times. As I said, I think when technology works, and it did, you know, just a little hiccup at the beginning, this is a fantastic way to bring us all together and keep us, you know, doing our continuous professional development, so that when we go back to normal times, we are ready to go and we can keep our mind stimulated and the ideas flowing. So I appreciate that you organized this. We're happy to be involved. And I thank Tom for joining us from Bangkok in Thailand. It's only 7:30 in the morning here for me. So I'm dialing in. I'm joining you from the United States. So I'm not on camera at this hour. But it's good to see everyone. So thank you again, and I look forward to more similar professional opportunities with ELTAI. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. Thank you, Dr. Maria, Dr. Glass, and Shweta Khanna, who was responsible for all this, who made this possible. And this webinar was organized by ELTAI Lucknow chapter and Noida, Greater Noida chapters. Our thanks are to both these chapters. Besides all this, we owe our success to this series to a large number of people, especially our patron, Dr. Rajgopalan, our president, Sanjay Arora, Dr. Ramani, our editor of JELT, Dr. Elanga, the secretary, Dr. Shravan, the national vice president, Dr. Xavier, Dr. Mithun, the major troubleshooters, real troubleshooters. We thank each one of them heartily and express our gratitude to them. There are a host of others, and I thank each one of them. Thank you. And I thank once again Dr. Glass for an excellent talk this afternoon. Thank you very much. Bye for now. Take care. Stay safe.